I think that as you approach, she kind of like smirks. I wouldn't call it a smile, um, but she definitely like does one side of her face smirks upward, but it kind of looks weird with this big nasty scar on her jawline, like holding one side of her face down and then the other side of her face looking happy. It gives her kind of this weird dichotomy in her features. And her eyes are cold and hard. I think just always. This is how she is at all times, and they're um, like a deep brown color. And she's got the typical Mandalorian features: strong, high cheekbones. You guys are the master race, and and yeah. So you approach, and you can see that like it's probably when she's at like this open bar or whatever. And like there's a drink that arrives, and she just takes the little like straw in it. She just stirs it as she watches you approach. So when you finally get there's probably like an empty seat on one side of her.
So I'll sit down next to her. Nah. Very tempted just to take her drink and down it, but no. I'll sit down next to her and be like, "Fancy seeing you here, Mai. My friend says you've been following me."
I think that yeah. Do you like head nod to Kin?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think she kind of looks from you. She looks at Kin, and she probably says, "Well, I think that your friend should mind his business then. As should you, Jax."
You're following me, so kind of is my business, don't you think?
And I think she kind of she like takes like a sip of her drink, and she says, "Well, following and happening to be in the same place are two entirely different things."
Jax will chuckle at that as okay, you're avoiding my question. I get it. I'm not going to push anymore. And I'll say, "It's good to see you."
Would that I could say the same, Jax. And who is this new troop of miscreants you've picked up? She kind of like looks to the other three that are arriving, because like you guys are not a normal looking group, I would say. There's like the clearly like the guy with the pilot's jacket on, right? Then there's like the weird little Deveronian girl that's like probably always like tinkering with something, and then there's like this like robed Togruta, right? Like all like mystical looking, and then there's Jax with like blasters everywhere, and then there's like this 8 foot tall droid.
I'll just say their crew I did a job with, kind of stuck together.
Yes, well, I suppose beggars can't be choosers.
I don't know what I'd say to that. I don't like that
You
comment.
talking shit?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I'd be like, I wasn't begging.
Yeah, I think she just like nods, like yeah, and then like continues to drink her drink. And kind of she probably doesn't like engage in the conversation. But I think Jax, you get a very good idea that she's already like in her mind. If she had to shoot her way out of this particular situation, she already knows who she's shooting first.
Yeah, I'm sitting next to you.
Yeah, and it's probably not even you. It's probably the droid, right? Like, you probably like she does that one thing where like she looks at the droid up and down, like briefly out of the corner of her eye, and then continues drinking her drink.
So yeah, I'll just say, what brings you to a volley?
Work.
Anything you need assistance with? From someone who, knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think she probably like laughs, and it's kind of this grating, kind of harsh laugh, and she says, "Ha, well, I'm assuming if you could be any help at all, you would have already done so."
Ooh.
You know I'm not particularly in the know these days, but one day that will change.
These days? And she like takes a sip of her drink with her eyes wide as she does that.
Yeah, obviously, but I don't know why she's bothering me. I'm not good at this. I'll say yeah. These days, I seem to remember your team was never quite at the level of ours.
Or maybe we just didn't brag about our exploits every time we had them.
We didn't brag.
I think that's probably the moment you have a flashback of like you drunk in a cantina and like singing songs about like some successful mission.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Maybe not you, but it's probably your crew.
And she's just not engaging with me, is she?
Yeah, she's doing that thing where like she's entertaining the conversation, but also I think that you get the distinct feeling that like not that she's annoyed with your presence, but that like she's clearly also trying to do something else. You know, like it's like, oh yeah, it's like when you see a friend on the street, but also you're like on your way to the bank, right? And you're like, I really need to get to the bank.
Can I roll a perception check to try and glean anything from what she's up to? Like, all right, because like I want to see like, is she casing something? Is she
sure
following someone else? You know,
I think she's following me. I don't say that.
Yeah, let's see here. That would probably be all right. It's going to be a hard check, and because of the type of person she is, it gets upgraded once for free.
Oh, well, so, I'm gonna flip a light side point.
Sure. Yeah. Totally.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yep. Whenever you're ready. Oh. Nope, I lied. I lied to you very badly.
Oh! No! I was gonna know everything.
I apologize. I put the dice in the wrong place. I
mean, I think my roll should stick and just roll your roll and see what happens.
You can roll again, please. That would be appreciated.
Okay.
Also, yeah. So,
so sad.
I apologize, but I forgot to give you the upgrade too, because this is the first roll I've ever had to do, apparently.
Oh,
and I'm an idiot.
This one, I didn't get the upgrade on this one either.
I know, that's what I mean. So why don't you go ahead and roll a third time? We're just practicing. We're just practicing.
All right, third time lucky. Boom.
There you go. Oh. So here's the awkward part. Like, you don't succeed, and you take some strain for that, but you do have a triumph. So something really good happens, but it's not that she's actually doing something else.
Can I leave the triumph to you? Do you have something in mind? Or do you want me to deal with it?
Oh, we get a really, really good lead somehow later on for jobs.
Yeah. I think I have a so for a triumph here, things like something could like drop into your lap right now that has nothing to do with the situation. Does that make sense? Like that could be a good triumph for you. That has nothing to do with my or anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So that's a thing, and I definitely have some things for that if you want that to happen. I think that like what Z said about like storing it for something later, perhaps involved with this, like maybe you don't get to find out now, but then during the course of whatever's going on, you run into it later, right? Like
I'll do that one. That one sounds good.
Okay, yeah. So again, she's unreadable, right? She just kind of like you're not sure, right? Knowing her like what she does may be helpful, right? Like knowing that what she does, but as far as what she's here for, asking that sort of a question, especially to someone as she sees you kind of on the outside, right? Isn't going to help your case.
All right. Well,
But
Jax,
the triumph will be at a later point during the adventure. Something's going to fall into your lap related to this.
cool. So Jax goes, well, I can't say it's been fun, but I got places to be, and I'll just walk away.
Yeah, and she just
I'll kind of motion to the others to come with me. And as we're doing it, I'll whisper to Ken, like, keep an eye on her. Like, not like as we're walking away, not like follow her or anything. Just
can you rotate your head 180 degrees and walk forward?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good.
Also, I'm doing a gesture with my fingers towards her. I'm watching you.
Yeah, you do the I'm watching you.
Yeah.
And I think she just like shakes her head. And probably like if you do that thing where like you walk away and then you kind of like look back, you see that she downs her drink and like settles her helmet back on to her head. And you see the sealed. And she stands up and pays her tab and kind of disappears into the crowd. So fantastic. Probably a good point though to arrive at the exotic. Now the exotic is run by it's owned and operated by a I'm not gonna call him a hut crime lord, but he is a hut. And his name is Lurzio Breaks. He's, as far as huts go, relatively young, probably about 150 to 200, kind of just on the adulthood for huts. Relatively small also as compared to other huts, but he's intelligent. I think is like one of the, all huts are intelligent, but he's maybe intelligence isn't the proper term. He's crafty. All huts relatively have good intelligence, but he's a little more devious than I would say someone else of his rank should be. And he doesn't take a prominent like display inside of his own club. And a club is probably the best way to describe it. I think that as you walk in, we get the image of there's probably a couple of Twilight dancers around. There's probably some musicians that are playing some appropriate atmospheric music. There's beautiful serving men and women. In here, distinctively, I think you notice that the droid presence that you notice outside is not present here. Everyone here is a real humanoid. And I think that as you walk in, you kind of get that stale alcohol smell kind of washes over you. And it's probably pretty popular no matter the time of day that you come in. So there's that dull hum from outside kind of dies down to the kind of thumping music and like louder than normal conversations to kind of talk over the music. There's probably, it's a big circular club with the bar that kind of is in the middle and circular, and then there's booths along the outside, and there's probably a couple of other like rooms that you see. Some of them are probably VIP rooms that have like a curtain, and there's probably like a Gamorrean bouncer standing outside. Some of them lead into like other places, like maybe a quieter area where you can have like little conference rooms or little meeting areas. And then there's probably like an area that leads into like an eating hall with that's where you can get real food instead of just like appetizers, which are brought out to the main floor. There's probably a dancing area as well, kind of nestled up against the wall at some point, where you can see there are some patrons and stuff kind of, dancing around to the music. And overall, it's pretty busy. I would say that there's plenty of open booths for you guys to kind of make a decision on where you want to go sit. There's obviously tables in the middle as well. And as you walk in, there's probably a hostess. It's probably a female Twi'lek, and she's got kind of pale greenish skin, and she looks at you and she says, "Welcome to the exotic. How may I be of assistance today? Are you looking for a table?"
please.
Very well. Are you here meeting anyone, or would this be or I think she says, instead of that, I think she says, "Would this be for business or pleasure?"
A little bit of both.
She nods as if she's heard that answer a million times. and says, "Very well, follow me." And you can see like she grabs like a couple of hollow display menus, and walks you over to probably one of the booths that's nestled in the main area. And she kind of like, "Will this do?" As she like offers you to sit down. It's big enough. I think the way that the booths work are there's probably like a circular table, kind of recessed into the wall with like a large bench in a U shape around it. So there's plenty of room for the group of you to all sit down.
This is fine, thank you.
Very well. Your server will be with you momentarily. Please let him or her know anything you might desire. And welcome again to the exotic. And she kind of like sets the chips down, and you all kind of get seated, and she gives you like a little curtsy, and she walks back to her hostess stand where she goes to serve another patron.
Okay, so at this point, Jax would wait, maybe scope out the room, have a drink, and see if anything comes to light, as in if he sees any kind of anyone who either he would recognize or someone who looks like they're looking to hire people for a job.
Yeah, sure. So why don't this is probably a check of some sort. I don't want to just rely on perception all the time, but that does seem probably the most accurate here, depending on what you're looking for. Yeah, why don't you just roll me an average perception check. I'm gonna upgrade it once because there is a potential for bad stuff to happen by you like looking at people, right? Like some people are probably here not to be observed, and if you're observing a bunch of people, it might cause some bad things.
Cool. Let me know when you're ready.
Yep. And it's on the right thing this time, I promise. Good.
It is.
Cool. So your success is you can see that there are definitely some people in this main hub area that are here simply just to get drinks and have a good time. You definitely see what looks like some business deals happening throughout the booths, like the various booths and stuff. None of them look too, descript or anything. But I think that what you do see is you see that there is an individual who's on like a hollow display at the bar and like has his back to you, and is kind of scrolling through hollow displays. And you see that like he scrolls across, and what you can very clearly see is like a bounty, like flashes up, and you see that the individual kind of like takes some notes. And then like scrolls to the next one, and there's another bounty. It's got like a picture, and it takes some notes again. And you see that the terminal that he's using it's a local terminal that you also have one kind of at your table that you could like browse if you wanted to.
So just okay, cool. Is there anything interesting about this individual, or is it more that we now know about these?
So it's a Rhodian. Your advantage probably gets you some interesting information about this individual. It's a Rhodian. You can tell that he kind of has that kind of ruggish look to him. He's wearing like a heavy leather coat. You can see that there's like a small bulge on his right hand side, which is probably a blaster of some sort. And I think you can also see that specifically as he's scrolling through, everything that has like a picture and very clearly looks like a bounty, he's writing down. There's some other stuff that he cycles through that like advertisements for stuff that he just continues on. But every bounty that he sees, he writes down.
Okay, so he's probably a bounty hunter.
Yeah, that'd be a good assumption.
I'll kind of to the group. First of all, I assume that like when we got there at some point, someone was like, "So who was that person that you were talking to?"
Yeah, I assume maybe Zian would say something at some point.
Yeah, and I'll fill the whole group in on her and our deal and all that stuff, and then I will mention that there's a bounty hunter over there taking a list of bounties, and looks like there's work to be found on this screen. And I'll pull up the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, Lurzio he's an entrepreneur, right? And he does he makes a lot of his money not just from the club, but also from essentially being a place where people can advertise. Which is probably why Mac came here often to find jobs, or at least, you know, find things to do, or find interesting things, or maybe even find information on your current job that whatever you guys were on or doing, right? So Lurzio makes a lot of his money from other factions who need to advertise something but can't necessarily go through like a proper channel to do so. So as you kind of like open up the view screen, it greets you, and you begin to like scroll through the different types of things that are advertised here. But I do want to give everybody else opportunity in this situation to kind of give some input here. You know, Zian, obviously you've kind of just went along with this, but perhaps this is a good time to, you know, bring up like, what are we actually doing here? Like, what kind of things are we looking for? Because I assume that may be a concern for you. Like, bounty hunting is fine and good, but it depends on what we're bounty hunting for precisely.
Right. Like, and Zian will just kind of put in like, I get that, you know, we're trying to make some money and we're trying to get like the things that are going to make us some of the best money aren't going to be necessarily the most savory of jobs, but he does want to avoid things like killing, slaving, kidnapping, you know, like the general kind of bad stuff, you know. But like bounty hunting is okay depending on the target. Like some dude kills a bunch of civilians, fled. That seems like a legit target to Zian, and especially if there's like a alive component, not just dead, you know.
So I think in this group we don't need to worry about slaving, because
I'm pretty sure we're all on the same.
Mouse was
we're all the same. Yeah, Mouse is anti-slaving. Jax works for Arcanus, who are anti-slaving. You're obviously too goody two-shoes to be pro-slaving. I'm assuming Dash isn't a dick and likes slaving. Like, I feel like slaving we can instantly.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, like even connected to those type of people, because they'll have like needs for that stuff, you know.
I'm a closet slave pro. What?
Closet pro slave. Good. Yeah. That'll add a good dynamic to this party.
Closet pro slavery.
The Galactic South will rise again.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no.
So I think in general we'd all steer clear of slavery related things,
right?
Unless it was at like there's a slaver on the loose and there's a bounty to go punch him in the face.
Yeah.
Big Mouse might be like, "Yes, mate. Jax, teach me how to punch." Or Kim, I guess, in that situation. But I like, you know, at the end of the day, Jax is good with a gun, but he's not an assassin, right? So he's not going to be looking to like just go out, like take a hit out on someone.
So I can describe to you perhaps some of the things that you run across.
Yeah, please.
So I think the first thing that comes up, it's kind of like on the like main page, is an advertisement for SGI Incorporated, the big company that does like the black market stuff. And one thing they're advertising for, they're not advertising specifically for a protection detail, but Jax, you're well enough versed to know that they're hiring mercenaries to simply escort cargo as it's being transported, right? And it's a local job between two different city parts. And so
Can we tell if it's can I tell if it's a job that it's like, is it simply escorting or is it also providing the transport?
No, so it is simply escorting. The descriptions on the job probably say how long it's going to take, the relative concerns, like what the most concerning thing about it is, what you'll need to bring and what will be provided for you. It states that like all sleeping arrangements and food and supplies will be provided by SGI, but you are required to bring any like personal medical stuff you need, any armaments that you may think are appropriate for the job, and also there's probably like a little liability clause that says, we're not responsible if you get maimed or injured, right? Like, if you get maimed or injured, that's on you. We're not responsible for any of that. And based on what you can read, I don't think you know the job is local, but I don't think you know like exactly what it is. It's very purposely vague on the details. Definitely doesn't say anything about like what you're transporting, but also specifically doesn't say anything about how you're transporting the stuff.
Okay, cool.
Which probably based on what you know that SGI is a black market manufacturer, probably not in the good graces of the the localized government agencies. A couple of other things that come up. You see that there is you do come across a couple of bounties. One of them is specifically for a Nikto by the name of Sidinth Gurk. And Sidnith, or Sidonith, sorry. Sidonith is wanted, essentially on the contract, it says he's wanted for murder. It said that he got into a confrontation with, in fact, it probably says this, like, I think the distinctive part about this is the bounty comes directly from Lurzio, the hut that actually runs this location, and it's probably why it's second on the list. The top one is SGI, probably because SGI pays a lot of money to advertise. And then the second one is obviously like the most important to Lurzio because he can put his stuff anywhere he wants. And he's wanted by Lurzio for the murder of one of his bouncers. It says specifically in the contract that like there was a confrontation in which a disagreement occurred that led to a physical altercation and led to essentially this bouncer getting his throat cut out by the Nikto, and then the Nikto like fleeing. Probably last scene, like it probably has like a last scene fleeing on foot from the exotic club, right? And there's kind of like all the it says details inside if like you actually go and like open it up, but in order to do that, just in order to like open up a contract, you have to like put in some information like, hey, here's my name. You probably have to like put your ID in the scanner or whatever just to like prove you're a real person, not just like a farming, like a bot farmer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you do that or not, or if you just wait and look at all the rest of the stuff.
At least Jax won't yet.
Yeah, another thing that comes up is there's another bounty, and it's listed as a bounty, but you tell right away that it's not really like a bounty per se. You see that it has an image of a very attractive Twi'lek female called Yasome, and her name is Yasome. And this contract is also put out by Lurzio, and the intent here is Lurzio wants to hire Lasame to work in his club, but I think it says that like negotiations with the management team of this dancer have gone poorly and we're unable to acquire, so we're looking for someone to help negotiate contract terms on behalf of the exotic club, etc., etc. And it's paying basically a negotiation fee. Like if you can make this deal work, we'll give you some money for making it work. Now obviously there's the whole like all of you are smart enough in the world to know that like this is a hut trying to acquire a dancer at like the base level. But from the way that the bounty is written, it definitely looks like, you know, listen, I'm trying to get a contract on this dancer because she's really good, but I can't. Like, somebody needs to go negotiate, which is 2 parts strange. 1 part strange because as a hut, you're probably one of the best negotiators in the galaxy, right? And 2 parts strange is it specifically talks about like a managing entity that is like in control here. As opposed to like going directly to Yasume. So those are the kind of weird things there. And again, it says like more details inside if you want to put in your information.
I mean, the thing is, as Dash notices, is he kind of like chucks in ways like, "Hey, this might be in our speciality," as he points to that specific contract, hinting at their previously done adventure as a joke.
Yeah, like, hey, we're actually good at that. Maybe we should do that, right? Zian, make us money.
Jackson's gonna look at Dash and be like, I don't think that's the kind of work we want to be involved in.
Though they say management. I'm not smart with, dancers and all, but what if maybe she's already in a club and this owner, hot guy, wants to, steal her? Possibly.
Potentially, but it's more likely that she's a slave, and we'd be helping purchase her.
Yeah, but I'm not interested. Jeez, are there any piloting jobs here? God damn, only fucking death and pistols. No fucking driving. I mean, flying. Says Dash disappointedly. It's like, can you find something like transport, like legitimately be a pilot? As he decides to look through, kind of like, in a way, kind of like arrogantly starting to look like, as everyone's just like, dude, we're looking at it, it's like, no, I'm interested in this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you
There
sort these by payment?
I think that specifically none of the payment details are public. Like, you have to like put in your information to get the access to that information. There are 2 more things that pop up though. One of them is there is a contract for Apu Tun, who is a Tridarian, and it's not from Lurzio. It's from a collections agency that's kind of put out a bounty. I'm putting that in air quotes. It's from a collections agency to go acquire some of credits that this Tridarian owes to whatever company they owe money to. It doesn't detail that in the contract. It basically just says like, hey, we're the collections agency. We're looking for information. Now, it also says that like,
I'm gonna call this a repo job.
yeah, it also specifically says like you're not responsible for like acquiring the funds. You're responsible for like information leading to the meeting between the collections agency and Aputan. It doesn't say like you have to go get the money and bring it to us. It doesn't say that at all. It
Sorry,
says,
is Aputan the person who it is regarding,
that's
or who has put it out?
That's the Tridarian who they're looking for. Essentially, it's kind of like a seek and find mission. Investigation, figuring out where this person is, what they do, where would be a good place to like, either trap them in a meeting via some other means, or if you wanted to go the harsh route, like you could black bag them and bring them into a room and have the collections agency there. That would obviously work as well for their purposes.
And the other job?
And then the last one, actually, and it's kind of like a side note. Almost, I think it almost comes across as a disclaimer, like on the fact that like there's all these things going on. So it comes across as a disclaimer, kind of at the end of all these things that have cycled by, and it says, remember, like it basically has the little text that says, remember, please report any nefarious or illegal activity to the DDF. And you would know that the DDF stands for the Druckenwell Defense Force. report any illicit activity to the DDF. Reward based on the information or assistance leading to the capture or recovery of, it goes through the whole list of like things that you can report. It's basically like a Crime Stoppers line, right? Like where you can call or you can find information, give it to the DDF, and if it leads to like a conviction or if it leads to like a bust, you'll get like some sort of money for that. Now it specifies three different factions. It specifies SGI. It specifies this entity called Lamar Enterprise, and it specifies the Arcana Syndicate. So like any information leading to any interruption of trafficking or black market busts or illicit drug usage like that gets busted, specifically from those three entities, will be met with a reward.
So SGI, what do we know? So with their guard mission or escort mission?
SGI, what was the other one? Sorry, it's Arcanus, SGI, and
Lamar Enterprise. LAMAR Enterprise.
Why am I assuming that this guy's Lamar Enterprise is a drug dealing like enterprise? For some reason I had that sense.
What were you saying, Kai? I'm sorry.
SGI, they had an escort mission.
They did,
So
yes.
what we know about this company, it's probably something illegal, and it's probably something that could get us into trouble with the local government.
Absolutely.
But what kind of company? Do we know anything about? How do they operate? I mean, are they?
we know that they operate similar to Janus, where they appear completely legit, but that's mainly because they can't be tied to anything nefarious.
Yeah, they're not really so SGI. I think that like everybody generally knows they're one of the biggest like combat droid manufacturers in the game, probably throughout the Commonwealth. They're definitely like relative to or probably tied to a lot of things when it comes to like combat droids. The problem is, and this is probably where it mostly like gets into trouble, when we're talking black market goods, a lot of that and a lot of the laws and rules change depending on where you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like black market on one planet is going to be perfectly normal on another planet, even within the Commonwealth itself, right? So the way that SGI gets away with what they do without like, big government coming down on them is, oh no, we're manufacturing this for these people, and it's totally okay because they authorize that. Like that's probably how they get away with it, but then they actually sell it to somebody that's on a planet that doesn't allow that kind of shit. So they use the laws in their favor for like the far fringes of the Commonwealth to pump black market droid, and specifically for SGI, they manufacture a lot of like assassin droid parts, and that's common knowledge. Like everybody knows they deal with a lot of combat droids, a lot of assassin droids, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how they operate. Now the problem is this is where their corporate branch is. So a lot of the quote unquote illegal activity that happens on this planet is prototype stuff. So a lot of like new tech that has to be like run through the corporate, like do its checks through the corporate, vein, has to come to here to Avali first before it can then be like manufactured somewhere safer. So really the DDF, the Defense Force, they look to try and make busts on SGI on these prototype items so that they can't in the future be manufacturing them somewhere else. Because as far as it goes, Druckenwell has some restrictions, but they're not easily enforceable. Like a lot of people do walk around with like heavy armaments, and stuff like that. But
okay, so
yeah.
So what I'm thinking is, of the missions that were available for us, this could probably be the one that was easiest and best paid, and considering retrieving a slave for a hut, or even getting someone who's wanted for murder, it will probably just, the hut will probably just kill him. So I think maybe that would be the best offer we could get.
On the side of the law.
So
I
yeah,
like it.
I
Well,
think
maybe, but probably not on the side of the law.
so. Jax would have similarly ruled out both the bounties, unless something pops out to him that he thinks, ooh, this could be something that Arcanus is interested in, which so far none of these have. Both the bounties, first of all, Lurzio, Jax doesn't really want to do business with a hut. He has beef with huts in general.
Mouse would also be like very against like doing
Yeah.
business with huts for obvious reasons.
So again, the protection job sounds good to Jax, very good for him. His worry there would be he's not sure how well the party would feel about it. Like some people might be like, well, it's kind of like, what am I supposed to do? Like,
Hey man,
guns
guns don't kill people, people kill people. You know what I mean?
Hey man, I just fly the ship.
The Seek and Find also potentially could be an interesting one. But again, so first of all, the report info to DDI about anyone, if anyone were to say, hey, should we talk about that Arcanus person we met, Jax would shoot that down vehemently. Because that would be incredibly counterproductive to what his goals are with Arcanus.
I mean, I guess it is curious, like, hey, we could report that there's we could report this high-ranking Arcanus person is here.
That would not fly well with Jax.
I don't know if anybody actually says that though, but that definitely would like lead you down that path if you wanted to.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say either the protection job or the Seek and Find job. But either would be good for Jax.
I'm thinking that I would think that the protection job would pay better than the getting someone who owes money to have a meeting with the bank.
Well, to figure that out, one of us should register ourselves and like see, because then we get more information about both, right?
Correct.
Would you like to know
Drawing
more?
spots?
Yeah. Would you like to know more? And just so you're aware, like the reason why you have to do that is because it's all tracked. And in fact, I think that one of the things you notice is like that Rodian you saw before, Jax. He specifically wasn't doing that. He was like recording his own information based on what he saw, like trying to avoid that step. Which is probably smart because anything that's put on record can be accessed somehow. But the reason why they do that is because it's kind of like clicking on a YouTube video, right? Like when you click on a YouTube video, you're registered as a user that has watched that video, therefore, so and so gets paid because the advertisement went through.
Yeah.
Here, registering that you're an actual person watching an actual advertisement or like getting more information on it. So like if you get more information on the SGI contract, what's going to happen is SGI is going to be like, hey, look, people are seeing our contracts. That's great. We should continue to pay these people to advertise our stuff.
Well, see, the thing is, I guess depends on who wants to sign themselves as the contract taker, because, well, for me, anyone that would possibly find my record would be like ex-Commodore pilot, protection job. That kind of doesn't make sense.
We could
But
just
that's how I rationalize something.
we could just contact SGI ourselves.
Yeah, Jax would much rather.
That is true. I mean,
if we're doing the protection job, or actually either one of them, Jax would go directly to the job giver rather than through this portal, just because he doesn't want to. Jax doesn't like having his information registered anywhere.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that like the difficulty there, and I'm just warning you, the difficulty there would be you don't exactly know who to go to, right? Like reasonably the contact information would be through this system. But you guys could absolutely go try and find like your own SGI contact somehow.
Well, does anyone want to register? with the system?
No, that's not a good idea.
It
I mean,
depends
Dash
on-
would. Dash would like say like I could register, but then someone says like, you sure want to leave a footprint here, Dash? It's like, no, not really.
if nobody's interested in registering for anything, and like we've already kind of picked out what direction to go in, Zian will actually look up the information on the murderer.
Yeah, you want to look up. So you want to register for like the information on that? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just kind of like trying to find out more information, and it's just like, if we want to do the protection job, that's fine. He's not as interested in the debt collection one, but the murder one does kind of pique his interest, and at least wants to get some info on it.
Sure. Yeah. So maybe while they're all like talking to each other, you just like kind of. You type in your information, you just like swipe your card or whatever, right? Like swipe the thing, just like I am a real human. And
I'm a real Togrutan.
Oh right, sorry, you're real Togrutan. And like basically it's like that. If you've ever went to any of those websites that have like the information's hidden, it all like starts to reveal itself, right? So you read up that this individual, Sindinth Gurk, is wanted for murder from this very club. Apparently, the detail that it gives you is the Nikto was under contract from Lurzio to perform a job which then went poorly, and after being informed that like he wasn't going to be paid because the job wasn't done properly, he became aggressive and agitated, demanding his payment. It probably has like a quote in there is like, you good for nothing, slug, like pay me my credits, right? Like there's probably like a quote in there, and it probably says like, in the interest of safety to the patrons of the exotic club, an attempt was made to detain Sindinthgurk, to which then he brutally tore out the throat of this bouncer and escaped the club without being, or like while under pursuit, but obviously he's hidden enough now that they don't know where he is. It also probably gives you some detail about like he was last seen, he's known to own a like an outdated, it probably says like outdated starfighter, and it probably gives you like the specs and regulations. And I think that if you want to roll, what kind of check is it? Going to be a knowledge check of some sort, because they don't know like the exact like manufacturer of that. Yeah, probably be a warfare knowledge check if you want to roll a warfare knowledge check, Zian.
Okay.
Let me set up that roll. Probably just an average roll. It's not particularly hard.
Good.
Yep.
Hey.
Cool. So take some strain for that. But you recognize the design is clearly an X-wing fighter. That's like the type of starship he was last seen in, having these distinct markings.
So when they say outdated, do they mean because it's an X-wing and X-wings are outdated?
Yeah, I mean X-wings are 500 years old now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why they say it's outdated, or maybe it's like an earlier model X-wing.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that they say that. It also probably says like, because remember in the basic information it said last seen fleeing the area. Yeah. But actually in the actual description, and this is how they get you to like register and get all the information, and this is how they protect themselves from the people like the Rhodian, who was just like, oh yeah, he was last seen here. Okay, good. It says that the last time his starfighter was tracked, it was pinging IFFF to the one of the two moons that orbit the planet. And it's suspected that he may be hiding among the debris or like small colonies that are out there.
Okay.
So it's kind of like in the sense that Rhodian probably will never go look there. because he doesn't even know that like there was a starfighter involved, or that like the starfighter got pinged somewhere. So yeah, there's a lot of but you have like a much more significant lead on that.
Okay.
So,
where was the
Kinwell-
last pinged?
The
one of the
second,
moons of
yeah,
Druckenwell.
the second moon that orbits Druckenwell.
So Kin will just nudge Xian and just say, "You know, that's not the local government who's after this guy. It's the club owner. He will probably just be killed in the back room if we bring him."
Oh, I also specifically, sorry, it says dead or alive on the contract.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, but the dude killed some bouncer. The bouncer might not be the best, but, you know.
Murder is murder, right? Like,
Murder's murder.
if it's it doesn't matter how good or how bad the person is that commits murder, they still committed murder, right?
Yeah. So.
Justify revenge.
Having noticed that Xian's put in information, got more about this guy, Jax goes, do you want to look up the details on that other job?
Oh, yeah, sure. Because, like, Zien doesn't really have any history with anybody that matters.
Yeah, and
He's,
also
like,
if anybody
almost
looked
a
up
blank
your
slate.
yeah, if anybody looked up your name, they'd be like, "What the hell is this planet he's even from? I don't even know the name of that. How do you even pronounce that?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So totally, yeah. Zian's probably a good
He's a
Jedi.
nomad.
What's a Jedi?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
What's a
exactly.
gender?
I just, if there's anything about, like, profession, I just put, like, monk.
Yeah, sure. Or like healer.
Religious adherent.
Yeah,
Healer,
there you go.
healer.
Perfect. Yeah. Really. Zealot. It's good. It's good.
Anyway. Yeah,
Cool.
So we're interested in the SGI thing? Yeah.
Cool.
Let's,
Yeah.
get some
So
info on that.
so you open up the SGI thing, and I think that like different from the last one, what you receive is basically just contact information, right? Like
Okay.
contact this person about the job, because obviously SGI doesn't want, even like, you know, if there's a CI, they don't want a CI being able to come in here and then get all the information on the job. And it probably says like contact this person about this information. It's probably one of those like send a text to this number and we'll get back to you, right?
Yeah.
But what it also details is probably like a level of risk here. It probably says something along the lines of like medical supplies are suggested, possibility of natural and man-made hazards. It probably says like and I think that like here's the distinctive one. It says races who are particularly susceptible to UV rays or you know, being surrounded by vast quantities of seawater should not apply. And it probably says, you know, anyone that has, probably at the end it probably says anyone that has an innate fear of sea life should not apply.
Okay, so probably going underwater or something like that, or near the water.
Yeah, that's a good reasonable assumption to make from
Yeah,
that.
so we'll explain that out, and then
UV rays. I feel like that means we're going to be above water, but going across the ocean.
or very shallow
Yeah.
possibility, but yeah. And then you guys, we wanted information on the other ones, or
I wonder if I would rust.
Sorry, say that again.
I wonder if I would rust.
I wonder if you would rust. Perhaps some resilience checks in your future. Yeah, and there was one more you guys wanted to know about, right?
Yeah, the seek and find Aputan.
Oh, right, yeah. So the Troidarian
collections.
Yeah, so it probably details that the Troidarian owned a small, like, municipal droid shop at some part in Avali. That they've been unable to make contact with him there. The shop has been closed for like X amount of weeks. It also probably says that like individual owes in the sum of like 10,000 credits to the collections agency. Probably gives you like a last known address that is somewhere in Avali. Probably gives you, the business address as well. And probably says, like, in fact, it probably specifically says in the contract, like, prefer if done, like, peaceably. We just need to, make a payment schedule, find out, we need to find this individual. They make a point not to be like, don't, like, black bag him if you can help it. But at the end of the day, they're a collections agency, so, like, anyway they get their money, they don't really care. But it's clear that their attempt is, like, trying to be, like, we're trying to work with him, but he's refusing to answer any hails, or, he's gone underground, we can't find him, we just need help locating him.
Yeah. Okay. Did, even though we weren't too interested in the others, did anybody want information on them while we're at it, or?
Jax doesn't protect. I mean, one of them is kind of just report info about these organizations to the police, right? That's pretty basic.
Yeah.
And the other one is, like, so similar to slavery that I think Jax would actually even take issue with looking at it any further.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So I guess, Mouse would say that she would not be comfortable working with Hut.
Yeah, definitely. Any of the jobs that would involve the hut, definitely Mouse would be against doing those.
As with Jax. Jax does not like huts.
Some of them are so nice, though. They just have your best
There was a
interests at
hot
heart.
Jedi.
There was, indeed.
Yeah.
He went crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. By the way, that's not in Black Fleet Crisis. That's in the one I just Crystal Star, which is awful.
It's in yeah.
No, it isn't Crystal Star. It's
Planet of Twilight.
Twilight, yeah, which was also pretty bad.
Indeed.
Yep.
So, while the group of you perhaps muddles over that information on what you should do next, it's probably a good place to take our break. So let's be back at 15 after. I'm good to everybody?
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Perfect. We'll see you all in just a few minutes. Feel free to talk over which one of those you might want to do.
Yeah. What are people?
So, we're going to go ahead and take a quick little break here. I'm glad y'all could be here. It's been another wonderful session. We'll get continued with session number 11, episode 11, I'm sorry, of Fractured Orders in just a moment, where we will find out what we are doing. Stay tuned, everybody.